Hello, welcome to the No Way Jose podcast. This is Jose Galison, your host for today. Today we'll be talking about the Epistemology of Conspiracy. This is actually a piece written by one of the great patrons of this show. I thought it'd be a great episode to put out for Christmas. It's also super timely with all the Epstein drops and all the confusion and all the insanity of the psyops that have ensued, and how to keep your head on straight during this time. I know there's a lot of people coming, essentially waking up in a very, very fast fashion, and with that, you're going to need to kind of find a new way to think so you don't lose your mind, and that's what we'll be talking about today. I look forward to seeing you in the show. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and hit that bell for notifications. We'll see you there. Well, Merry Christmas, folks. As I said, we're going to be talking through a few pieces. It won't be just the patron's piece today. The patron is Mark Vestibule, a longtime patron for those who follow back in the Tower Gang days. He was one of the top dogs and dropping into the mail bag there. So it's cool to see him follow along here and writing a piece for the show. I guess a little bit of a promo for the Patreon. I do let you guys know I've done quite a few episodes with the patrons. So that is a perk you guys get. I do farm ideas for content from the, particularly the Telegram group. So, kind of technically the $10 level gets you this, but I don't know. I don't even really know what all these people are particularly. Now, obviously, Mark Vestibule, he's sponsor level. He's a Playboy baby. Top level. But, I do that for all the levels, too. So if you have a compelling idea, particularly for the patrons, I do, hey, you guys have good ideas, and so we'll cover them. Now, there's actually 3 pieces we'll be going through today, but they kind of build upon each other, and they are shorter, so don't get too scared off. The first 2 are actually by Steve Patterson, who is, actually, let me find his thing real quick for you. Probably should have had this ready so I can kind of let you know who he is. Since we will be covering a couple of his pieces, so I figure why not. Here's Steve Patterson. He's the founder of the Natural Philosophy Institute and co-writer of Hijacking Bitcoin with Roger Ver. So he wrote a couple pieces that Mark Vestibule was inspired by to write a third piece that kind of building off of these concepts. So the first couple will be Steve Patterson's pieces, so credit to him. He has a Substack if you want to check out more of that. I don't know a ton about him, so but I have already read these pieces and I enjoyed them, and I will be sharing them with you guys as well. But yeah, so Merry Christmas, everybody. This is, I guess, a little bit my gift to you guys. Sorry for the patrons that this didn't stay behind the paywall a bit longer, but I thought it made sense. It really made sense in this time, and it's kind of my thank you to you guys. So, but let's get into the first one. But What's the Mechanism by Steve Patterson. I'll probably keep my commentary on these probably to a minimum because I don't really feel like there's much to be had, but let's go ahead and get through this one. It says, the central goal of scientific investigation is to understand causal mechanisms. We want to understand why specific inputs generate specific outputs. For example, in medicine, we want to understand the mechanisms of action of drugs to be able to more skillfully use them. Unfortunately, the desire to understand mechanism has led scientists, doctors, and researchers into grave error, the mechanism fallacy, thinking that correlations are not causally connected is the mechanism if the mechanism is not understood. This is a type of logical fallacy known as the argument from incredulity, the rejection of an idea because one cannot imagine how it could be true. Despite being a common fallacy among the scientific class, it is inherently anti-scientific. It causes people to dismiss observations out of hand without examination due to discordance with existing theoretical models. That is anti-empirical in a technical sense. It also tends to reflect a lack of creative thinking. Generally speaking, we see connections before we understand them. Sometimes these connections are observed thousands of years before we can pretend to understand them. People have been using soap and boiling water to stay healthy long before anyone can explain why. To put it bluntly, we don't understand causal mechanisms, even for simpler things. We tell ourselves nice-sounding theoretical stories at a certain level of resolution that usually turn out to be false and sloppy. Our resolution is not fine-grained enough to truly understand almost anything. If we required mechanism to be sorted out before entertaining hypothesis, we would not be able to offer any hypothesis at all. Let's start with a concrete example. Aspirin. What could be a more commonplace medicine, prescribed for ages for all kinds of ailments? Not a fancy medication at all. We know all kinds of things about aspirin, its chemical composition, generally safe doses, generally safe context for ingestion, and yet it turns out in 2025, we still do not fully understand its mechanism of action. We can use it, but we don't fully understand it. There are stories we tell about mechanisms with progress made every few decades, but nothing is finally figured out. To make the point explicit, if aspirin were a new medication, it would thus be self-evidently wrong to say, we should not believe in its effectiveness because what's the mechanism? Clearly, knowing that aspirin works is a completely separate question from understanding why it works. It will probably take a much fuller, perhaps complete understanding of the human body to really figure out how simple aspirin works. And alas, it will probably take a full understanding of physics to figure out how the human body works. How about an ultra-simple example? A ball rolling down a plank. Surely we can understand what causes this basic phenomenon. It's gravity, of course. I'm afraid it's not just gravity. It involves a list of concepts so large I can't even list them all. Surface tension and air resistance, thermodynamics, geometry, time, quantum physics. Each one of these domains splinters into a million more complex subdomains. And come to think of it, we don't even have gravity itself figured out. Whose gravity? Einstein's or Newton's? To truly understand the ball rolling down a plank, we probably need a full understanding of quantum gravity, which does not yet exist. So unless you are willing to claim to have solved physics, it's fair to say we don't actually understand the true mechanisms for utterly basic phenomena. We tell nice-sounding stories that answer surface-level questions, but our stories are certainly incorrect and incomplete. Therefore, when people make claims about unusual physical phenomena, we should be extremely careful before dismissing those claims due to a lack of known mechanism. Take another example, acupuncture. Much has been written about the effects of acupuncture and the usual woo-woo theories accompanying it. There are legions of scientific minds who discuss the practice due to a flimsy theory of mechanism, energy flow, meridians, qi, etc. And yet, despite the mockery from scientific Westerners, the practice continues to grow in popularity all over the world. The trouble is, there's a ton of evidence that acupuncture works, both in the medical literature and outside it. We just don't understand the mechanism yet. Though there are several obvious leads. The nerves in our bodies, for example, match the energy flow diagrams with fair accuracy. It's not hard to imagine that the tiny needles are interacting with our nervous system in ways we don't understand. In fact, I'm sure in hindsight that will be utterly obvious. Two more controversial examples. Prayer, and the safe and effective medical intervention that people have strong opinions about. Prayer is an easy one, and it doesn't take too much creativity to come up with a plausible mechanism. At the very least, praying obviously benefits the prayer, in the same way that meditation benefits the meditator. If this is true, then it's not hard to speculate how prayer might help others too without appealing to any mystical mechanism. When somebody says, "I am praying for you," they are saying, "I am caring for you and sympathizing with your situation." That feels good. It is going to have a non-zero effect on your nervous system, as receiving a hug and a kiss might too. When 50 friends are sending somebody their prayers, the prayee usually feels good about it. They might even describe it as feeling the love, which is going to concretely affect their nervous system. Not to mention the widespread social benefits accrued to members of the group participating in the communal prayer act, and the effects on their neurology and group bonding, which provide even more roots to benefit the prayee. Furthermore, we know there's a connection between brains and electricity. Brain waves are a real, measurable thing. We know meditators can affect their own brain waves, and by extension, since those waves stretch through the skull, they have a non-zero impact on the environment around them. This is why medical apparatuses can read brain signals, because those brain waves actually physically affect the world. It's not difficult to imagine that prayer, especially coming from a skilled prayer or meditator or many people, might have real physical effects in the complex domain of bioelectricity. This is just simple, easy, obvious speculation. What are the chances that the practice of prayer, discovered since time immemorial, therefore is tracking something real, even if we don't understand it? I'm going to say it's practically guaranteed, especially if we account for indirect mechanisms of interaction, much less any supernatural causality. The last example is vaccination. On the one hand, we have an army of mothers around the world claiming they have observed a causal connection. Shortly after receiving a shot, their kids start to develop neurological problems. On the other hand, we have an army of medical professionals insisting the science is settled, that there's no possible causal connection, etc. In this case, there are several plausible mechanisms for neurological damage. But even if there weren't, the empirically minded scientists must recognize that if the signal does not go away, if mothers around the world are still making the same claims after decades, then that's evidence of an unknown causal connection. That's exactly what it looks like when there's correlation with not yet understood causation. It should be noted the irony of the extremely anti-empirical approach of a mechanism-first understanding of nature. Empirical inquiry starts with observation. To reject the validity of observations because they do not fit pre-existing theoretical models is perhaps the definition of dogmatic anti-empirical thinking. Unfortunately, it's made legions of 19th and 20th century thinkers extraordinarily arrogant and has blinded them to basic observation. They are convinced their theories are so good, there's no longer a need to open their eyes and observe the world. As a general rule, I propose that the question, "But what's the mechanism?" should never be considered a counter-argument to any claim. It can be asked in good faith to prompt people to start thinking creatively, but it's not criticism, especially considering our shallow understanding of the world. There's a high likelihood all our favorite scientific ideas will be invalidated in the next few centuries, so let's think with a little more humility. All right, moving on to the next piece by Steve Patterson, where this is learning chess through jiu-jitsu, and then from there we'll get into Mark's piece. Intelligence might be the same thing as pattern recognition. For some reason, modern intellectuals are obsessed with intrinsic ability to recognize patterns, IQ. They are focused on brain hardware. But a far more important and interesting aspect of pattern recognition is simple exposure to new patterns and concepts. Our brains have the ability to learn new information and store patterns away for future use, adding new tools to our conceptual toolbox. Better to have an average IQ with a wide exposure to different ideas, concepts, and principles than a high IQ with narrow exposure. Specialization can literally make people stupid, even about the subject they are specialized in, sometimes especially stupid about the subject they are specialized in. Here's an example from my own life. Learning the basics of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exposed me to a bunch of new concepts, and one of them made an immediate impact on my chess ability. Despite playing chess for a decade before taking up BJJ, I completely missed an obvious and important principle. Within the first week of training BJJ, I was verbally introduced to the concept of energy management. In the philosophy of the Gracies, the founders of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a smaller opponent can dramatically improve his chances of self-defense by draining his opponent's energy. It's difficult to choke somebody unconscious or break their limbs if they are strong and full of energy. But no matter how strong somebody is, once their body is physically exhausted and filled with lactic acid, they are easy to defeat. It doesn't matter if there's a 100-pound difference between them. Once their battery is drained, they automatically lose. So the strategic principle of energy management is of paramount importance. I appreciate this idea immediately, but then I experienced it over and over, getting my ass kicked while completely exhausted. The principle is real. Despite training both karate and Japanese jiu-jitsu for years before, I never really grasped the importance of this concept. After the thrill discovering this new concept, I wondered, where else does this happen? Initially, the thought popped in my head. Well, energy management isn't a part of chess because the game is mental, not physical. Then I quickly realized how stupid that idea was. Of course, energy management is a part of chess. Just like the body gets tired, so does the mind. The brain itself gets fatigued. Chess is physically and mentally exhausting at a high level. And it turns out the best chess player in the world uses this strategy all the time. Magnus Carlsen is known for dragging his opponents into deep, tiresome endgames where he wins a war of attrition. Against the best players in the world, he will enter theoretically drawn endgames and end up winning, because his opponent needs to make 40 precise moves in a grueling endgame. One small slip-up and the position will be lost, exactly like the Gracie's masters would do while fighting. It's the same principle. I now have this tool in my conceptual toolbox. If I only studied chess, I don't know how long it would have taken me to grasp this idea deeply. Now I see the same pattern everywhere. That is increased intelligence, even if my IQ didn't budge a point. And then now we'll get into our boy Mark Vestibule's piece, which I very much enjoyed, and I hope you guys do as well. This is going to tie some of these concepts together. Let's get into it. The Conspiracy of Ignorance, Steve Patterson's Epistemological Subversion in an Age of Patterned Shadows. In the labyrinthine corridors of human cognition, where the Enlightenment's torch flickers against the encroaching dusk of quantum uncertainties and neural enigmas, Steve Patterson emerges not as a mere philosopher, but as an unwitting saboteur of the mechanistic empire. A figure whose critiques, scattered like heretical pamphlets across the digital agora, inadvertently forged the intellectual armature for what the orthodox deride as conspiracy theory. Patterson, in his relentless dissection of the mechanism fallacy, that arrogant demand for a clockwork explanation before acknowledging the tick-tock of observable reality, does not merely challenge the scientific priesthood, he democratizes doubt, elevating the humble pattern spotter to the throne once reserved for the high IQ bureaucrats who, blinded by their own deductive mirrors, dismiss the whispers of correlation as mere echoes in the void. This is no minor footnote in the annals of epistemology. It is a seismic realignment, akin to Hume's guillotine severing is from ought, or Gödel's theorems unraveling the completeness of formal systems, reminding us that knowledge is not a crystalline edifice, but a fractal web, forever incomplete, where the unseen threads of causation mark our pretensions to mastery. Consider the trajectory of Western thought, from Aristotle's theological claims to Descartes' cogito erecting barriers against the chaotic flux, culminating in the 20th century's positivist frenzy. An era wherein Popper's falsifiability became not a tool of genuine scientific demarcation, but a status weapon wielded by credentialed gatekeepers to suppress dissenting inquiry, enforcing a monopoly on acceptable knowledge that shielded entrenched power from scrutiny while masquerading as neutral methodology. Includes paradigms shifted like tectonic plates, exposing the social construction beneath the veneer of objectivity. Patterson, echoing these giants, yet transcending their silos, posits that our obsession with mechanisms, the how that must precede the what, is not progress, but paralysis, a cognitive straitjacket inherited from Newtonian determinism ill-suited to the probabilistic haze of modern existence. In his worldview, aspirin alleviates pain not because we have mapped every synaptic cascade. We haven't, even in this late 2025 with neural interfaces probing the brain's depths, but because the correlation endures, defiant of our explanatory gaps. Acupuncture pierces the veil of suffering sans a fully articulated neural physiology. Even prayer, the archaic ritual scorned by rationalists, yields empirical ripples in stress reduction and communal resilience. Its mechanism perhaps buried in the electric hum of collective minds. But Patterson's heresy deepens when extrapolated to the shadowy realms of human affairs, where power structures like black holes bend the light of truth. Here, the mechanism fallacy becomes the perfect alibi for institutional inertia, allowing the elite to label anomalies as theories unworthy of pursuit, while the pattern recognizers, those intuitive cartographers of chaos, intuit the hidden geometries that high IQ gatekeepers shackled to linear proofs cannot or will not see. Enter the Epstein enigma, that sordid tapestry of elite entanglements woven in the underbelly of global influence, serving as Patterson's unwitting case study in epistemological humility. Jeffrey Epstein, the financier cum predator, whose island retreats and private jets ferried titans of industry, politics, and science. Clinton, Gates, Prince Andrew, a constellation of names recurring like motifs in a Wagnerian opera, little adding of myself, Teal as well, presents correlations so dense they border on the symphonic. Flight logs documenting dozens of voyages to secluded domains amid allegations of underage exploitation. Financial largesse to prestigious institutions like Harvard and MIT, correlating with unprosecuted favors. A suspiciously lenient 2008 plea deal under Acosta's watch, shielding accomplices in a manner that reeks of orchestrated mercy. And his 2019 demise in custody amid failed cameras, absent guards, and a cascade of suicide narratives that in 2025's document dumps under renewed scrutiny only amplify the dissonance. We need not invoke a grand mechanism, a cabal's blueprint, an intelligent agency's black book or playbook to warrant investigation. The patterns suffice. Much as Patterson's aspirin demands no biochemical treatise for its prescription. Yet the high IQ cohort, trained in the silos of specialization, economists parsing markets, lawyers dissecting statutes, scientists demanding peer-reviewed causality, appears befuddled. Their intelligence a blunt instrument honed for puzzles with defined edges, not the amorphous sprawl of societal intrigue. They demand the how, the leaked memo, the confessed operative, before entertaining the what, thereby perpetuating a conspiracy of silence where denial masquerades as skepticism. This bifurcation of intellect, Patterson's insight that pattern recognition constitutes an alternate, perhaps superior form of intelligence vis-a-vis the quantifiable IQ, illuminates the chasm. IQ, the artifact of Binet's metrics refined through Terman-Stanford-Binet scales, measures processing speed within rule-bound domains, analogies, matrices, sequences that reward the mechanistic mind, the one that assembles Lego blocks of logic into towering but brittle structures. But pattern recognition, as Patterson intuits, operates in the Gestalt periphery, akin to the Renaissance's polymath leap from anatomy to engineering, or the jazz improviser's navigation of harmonic chaos. It discerns order in noise, correlations and cacophony, without the crutch of explicit algorithms. In the Epstein saga, the pattern spotters, researchers like Ryan Dawson, online sleuths poring over manifests, embody this humility. They acknowledge that causations may lurk beyond our ken in the opaque networks of power where transparency is the exception, not the rule. High IQ dismissers, conversely, risk intellectual hubris, their deductive prowess rendering them dumb to the intuitive leaps the history vindicates. Recall the Watergate correlations initially scoffed at as paranoia, or the Tuskegee experiments patterns buried under official denials until humility forced reckoning. Patterson's framework thus subverts the hierarchy, positing that true epistemology thrives on this duality, where the mechanism-obsessed elite yield to the humble pattern weavers, fostering a science of suspicion that probes without prejudice. Yet this grounding for conspiracy theory, rebranded not as fringe delusion but as epistemically modest inquiry, carries revolutionary peril, echoing the subversive undercurrents of thinkers like Foucault, who unmasked knowledge as power's instrument, or Baudrillard, simulating hyperrealities where signs eclipse substance. In an era of algorithmic surveillance and deepfakes, where correlations proliferate via social media's infinite scroll, Patterson's call for humility becomes a bulwark against both credulity and complacency. Entertain the patterns, investigate sans mechanistic mandates, but revise relentlessly as new data emerges. We may never unveil the full Epstein mechanism. Blackmail archives lost to the ether, influences dissipated like quantum waveforms, but the correlations demand deference, lest we consign ourselves to a platonic cave of curated narratives. Patterson, in his quiet subversion, reminds us that knowledge is not conquest, but communion with the unknown, a dance with shadows where humility, not certainty, lights the path. In this, he unwittingly authors the manifesto for a new enlightenment, one that embraces the conspiracy inherent in all quests for truth, the conspiracy against ignorance itself. And with that, guys, thank you. I'm glad. I hope a lot more of you have joined this, joined the conspiracy against ignorance here, and have become woken up in the old version of the word here. Big thank you to Mark Vestibule for this piece. And the other two pieces for sharing with me. I do think this is interesting stuff, and I do think it's worthwhile information for newcomers to information just like this, so you don't lose your mind. And you can kind of theorize all this stuff. But yeah, big ups to Mark Vestibule. Also, Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you have a good time. I just got it's late where I'm at. I took a midday nap, and now I'm not tired. And we just got done doing all the Santa stuff, so late at night, and figured I'd knock out an episode. I figured this would be something good for you guys on Christmas. Figured I'll drop this tomorrow. Because, yeah, very, very timely, and it's, I guess, a little bit of a Christmas present for the patrons, and a reminder, hey, come to me with content, and we'll make it. You guys are what matters. You guys are the people, so you guys are what makes this whole thing go around. As cheesy as that sounds, it is true. It is true, and the more my audience grows, the more I love you guys, and it's nice hanging out with you guys in the Telegram and stuff like that, so I really do enjoy doing these sorts of things. So the funny enough, this actually started, I tried to get Mark to come on the show, but he's an old fuddy-duddy who couldn't figure it out. So he's like, I'll write you an essay. I was like, okay, here we go. We got this essay. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. We got another nice intro for you guys on the way out. It was from Blunts for Jesus on Twitter, or at Two Stone to Go Home. He's who had the intro, and I have another outro that is in the same theme, but a different one. So hang out for that. But if you guys want to support what I'm doing here, hey, you want to get in on the group, hang out with all the people in the Telegram, I highly recommend it. But if you want to support the show without giving money, you can hit like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. You can find this show on YouTube, Rumble, all the major audio podcatchers, and Twitter as well, at Tower Gang Jose. And if you want to support the show the best way you can do that with money. And as you can see here, right there's a QR code up there. Or you can go to patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. The lowest level is $2. That gives you access to a whole host of episodes. Usually do about 1 to 2 behind the paywall, and 1 to 2 per week behind the paywall. I keep about 4 behind the paywall at any given time. You also get the ad-free RSS feed there, and then you can get the Telegram. And then also you get the access to the pre-show and the post-show and video calls from me and Austin's weekly live call-in show, Already Dead. And I also give a big shout-out to my sponsors, which is the highest level of my Patreon. Is a big thank you for their support. My previous co-hosts on Tower Gang, at Learner Toad, also at Abrogate D's, at ZOVRCK, at _Infinite Zeal, Tim Tuttle, at Jolly Cleepo, big fan of the show, Torme, at Wayne Tackless, 1-800-CAR for Kids, No Free Lunch, Jack, Mark Vestibule, and Jacob Winograd of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. All right, and with that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Here's an outro for you guys. We will see you in the next one. Be sure to check out the Morning Dump, which usually goes out Monday through Friday, roughly about 11 a.m. Eastern, give or take, depending on things going on. But hope to see you guys there. I hope you guys enjoy this, and I hope you got something out of this. I sure did. See you in the next one.
Julia.